Hey everyone, my name's Trapixium, and this time we're gonna take a bit of a break from the lore. Instead, I wanted to talk about something more close to home, at least for me anyway. I would like to tell you a story. It's a story that's emblazoned in my mind not just due to how recent it is nor its impact, but the fact that it's not just any story, it's my own. At the age of 4, I started playing trading card games. I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! And at that moment I saw the giant hologram and the kid screaming about friendship. I was hooked. And I stuck with it throughout my life. I always had my deck in my jacket, my pocket, my bag, on the bus, at school, at my cousin's house, even when he didn't play. I always had my cards, and I refused to be without them. All I wanted was my next game. I never won, of course, the deck was absolute nonsense. But my intention was to win, and I enjoyed my time playing the game I loved. As time went by, I entered high school, and the world had long ago threw away their decks. But still, I had mine. It was at that point I was introduced to Magic. When I first found out what the game was, I thought it was interesting and probably needed more time to learn it. I knew very little about the game, admittedly. I really was only familiar with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Growing up, so the moment people start pulling out Snapcasters and discussion of tutors, I was automatically lost. I watched matches between my friends Cody and Nate for a few months, and I played like 1 or 2 matches as well. I studied the color pie, and I loved red. I hated white, and green specifically. Green, to me, I was like, it's too big, there's no way I'm going to be able to cast these spells effectively. But I didn't know dual color cards existed until I saw a game of EDH, and yes, back when I started playing Magic, it was EDH, not Commander. I was eventually handed my first deck, Rakdos Vampires Burn. Yeah, it's not my best deck. In fact, I think Cody got angry at me and handed me a handful of bolts and vampires in a fit of anger in response to the confused kid who asked for a deck that went in for direct damage. I was also handed an EDH deck. Now, it was a Teysa and Void of the Ghosts deck, but again, it barely qualified as EDH. I remember a couple months after acquiring the cards, I saw a pack of N15 in the gas station down by my house, and I was like, okay, why not? So I bought the pack of N15, and I think I shuffled the pulls into it, and aside from that, it was already well over 99 cards. It had an Alms Beast, it had 2 copies of Kingpin's Pet, it had a lot wrong with it. Suffice to say, it was not EDH, my friend. But after that, I never really played Magic. For 2 years, my family life got kinda complicated, so I shipped my EDH deck to my girlfriend so we could play on Skype, and we did once, and then we put the cards away. It wasn't until my junior year that I got back into TCGs. Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, I went straight back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't even consider Magic. I spent the next 2 years getting my butt kicked in a game I loved as a child. Finally, time came, and I graduated from high school, and I moved to Florida. Far away from the snowy lands of southwest Minnesota, and even farther away from my family. All I had was my girlfriend, who we had been together for 4 years online, but we had much learning to do about running a house, we'll say. While I was out with Kat searching for a job, right down the road from our apartment, we found an LGS. It was called Campus Cards and Games 2. The owner greeted us, and I asked if he was hiring. He said no. I shrugged, and I gave the place a look around. It was then I asked the question, so, what do you sell? He smiled. We do mostly Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Warhammer, D&D, and many other wonderful games. I was sad to realize they didn't sell Yu-Gi-Oh! And was even sadder when I realized no one at the store played it. It was then I remembered I still have my old Magic decks that Cody made. I kept all the cards in both decks, so it was fully functional. Then came my first actual night at a Magic game store. Oof. Big oof. I had no idea what I was doing. More so than normal at that age. People would ask what kind of deck I had. They would ask, is it standard? Is it modern? I would say yes. It's a deck. That's not a good answer. And then during Kaladesh, people would bring out their Teamer Energy, their Mardu vehicles, their servo decks. Much to their surprise, they'd be turn 1 bolted to the face. Suffice to say, they were really confused. But, it was so bad. No one explained why this was bad, is the thing. I went to the counter and I looked at the guy who was running the register, his name was Dom at the time, and I asked him questions regarding Magic. It was then I realized Magic was far more complex than the trading card game I had grown up with, and the choices and possibilities with this game were potentially endless. It was then I began upgrading my Rakdos deck with Guild Gates, more bolts, spears, and some spikes and rifts. 2. Gutter Snipes and Mana Barbs. Amonkhet came out and I got my first deck builder's toolkit, and from it I pulled my first Planeswalker, a Johnny Unyielding. It wasn't until the 2 other guys I was hanging out with at the time started playing around with EEH decks that I started to fully fall in love with the game. I remember going over to my friend's house and saw them at the dining room table arguing. Now, this was no new occurrence. This happened a lot. One of my friends, Mauricio, sorry if I'm out in your ear, boss, he played a servo deck at the time. So I set about doing what I normally did, break it up. It wasn't until I saw the battlefield I sort of realized what was going on. They both went out and got commander precons, the exact same ones. They both bought Brea, and I looked at the mess that was on the table and was like, I can't help you here. So after the game ended and we were booting up League of Legends, the idea was tossed out. Maybe we should start playing EDH as a group instead of kitchen table. Some odd weeks later, the conversation hadn't let up and we started looking at each other just like, what are we going to pilot? None of us, except our friend Jerry, had a real collection, and we all just sat there and thought for 5 minutes. I only knew one thing, and that was bad burn, so I went to gather and I looked at my friends, and with indifference and a bit of a smirk, I said whatever legendary creature I hit first in gather, that will be my commander. Click, counterspell. Click, land. Click, Gleemax. I threw my hands up and looked at my friends and they said no. Dang it, I really wanted Gleemax. This, instead of Xenagos, it could have just as easily been Gleemax. I'm telling you this right now. 4 clicks later, I finally found my commander. Xenagos, God of Revels. I read that ability and the first thing that came out of my mouth is, what the hell is Devotion? Also, that ability is amazing. And the decision was made. I was going to do Xenagos EDH. I was the first person to choose their commander. Our first commander match would be 2 months later and go on to be Progenitus, a Hydra tribal deck, versus Melik Izzet Paragon. Yes, it was a Storm deck versus my Xenagos Swarm Tactic big boy deck. Our first game was about an hour long. I will never forget the end to it. It ended with me resolving Domi Raid's emblem and killing the Progenitus player in not just one shot, but it was literally me sending whole board. Usually nowadays I only swing 1 creature with Xenagos and someone dies. It was literally 10 creatures that I just sent at the Progenitus player. And he couldn't calculate all the damage. It was hilarious. And then it was right after he died that I got my first taste of a Cyclonic Rift. Yeah. Yep, that's a common occurrence now. I replayed my stuff and killed Melik. Cool. After that, it never happened again. Okay, I never resolved another Domri emblem. These matches, they went on every day for 4 hours at 4. After that, my friends kept building stronger decks, different decks, but I kept Xenagos. I liked the deck, it was fun. All I had to do was make it clear I wasn't going to swing until I felt threatened. And with a Progenitus player, that's usually pretty often. So, Progenitus turned into Scarab God, and then Melik turned into Samut Legends, who turned into Krufix Helix Pinnacle, who turned into Shu Yun Voltron, who turned into Mathis Politics, who quickly turned into Joda Big Mana Epic, who then turned into Locust God Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round type stuff. And everything was fine. I was happy. I'd found a job, eventually. I was good at it, and then I began to feel depressed. 20 years old, and all I had managed to do was leave my home in southwest Minnesota and find a job and furnish an apartment. There was nothing else except work and Commander. No college, no further chances at upper management, just Magic, my job. It wasn't until Christmas of 2017 that it started to get to me, and I had an anxiety attack one night. I always did this thing growing up where if I was upset with the situation or I just needed something to do, if I couldn't interact with people or on my PlayStation, I'd create something. That manifested at 16 by making Minecraft skins and making papercraft. They were copies of the skins that I had actually made. I made different decks from what my friends used in paper for Yu-Gi-Oh! I was recreating my friends' decks in simulations on my laptop. It was on December 28th, 2017, that thing resurfaced. I was so full of stress, depression. I missed my family. I had been away from them at that point for going on 2 years. I needed to make something. I needed to create something. Something that wasn't a burrito or deck or skin. I used the 7 years of high school speech I had and wrote a script. I pulled out my headset. 1 second here. This same pair, these are Sades, Spellbounds, pure white. Yep. The same pair. And I pulled up the voice recorder on my laptop and I gave my first read. I stayed up all night editing my first video, and at 7:30 a.m. I uploaded it to YouTube. In a split second, I made one of the biggest moves I've made in my very young life. Because from that moment of crippling existential dread came something so strong and so fitting that it fits the shows I watched as a child. Because from this one-off decision, I made a conscious effort to keep making videos until I was introduced to a certain Liliana fan and her group of friends. Yeah, I know. Friendship. For the first time in my life, I finally found a place where not only could I flex my creative muscles, the ones I had in deck building, in comedy, and lack thereof in other fields, I can't help but feel here I have a future. Thanks to this community, this game. I can now face my future. Whatever it may be, with not just a smile, but a smirk in tow. Thank you so much for watching. Now, I want to hear your story down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, and if you want to revel with me and Xenagos on that weekly basis as we carve our way through the multiverse, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, may the Lotus watch over you. Ha 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 ha!